discernment. So for those of you that are maybe here for the first time, we're doing a series this year. We called it The Calling, this idea that something can be tapping us on the shoulder, telling us to pay attention, to listen to. And so the first quarter, we went and did a deep dive into this idea of what we called sacred listening. And then this quarter, we're focusing on this thing called sacred discernment. And last week, I talked about this idea, this concept that we've got all these ideas floating around. We've listened. Now we've got all these things going on. It's like, well, great. What do I do with that? In other words, how do I discern what's being told to me from my higher self, the divine God, if you will, versus just my ego telling me this is what I should be doing? So last week we talked about that, and then I said this week we're actually going to be talking about, well, I know, Mike, but practically, how do you actually do this thing, right? And so last week I mentioned this idea about discernment is the ability to listen well, right? And what we talked about was this idea of this discernment is actually your intuition. And it's so interesting, right? Because when we talk about the intuition, I think some people do this very naturally and they're really good at using their intuition, and some of us maybe not so much. I hate to throw us in categories, but as a general rule of thumb, women, way to go. You're really good at this most of the time. Guys, some are, just depends. But that just seems to be the way that it works. And that's really what I want the premise of this talk to be about, is this idea, if you will, of the feminine. The feminine. That is what often is missing, especially in today's society. Why? The masculine. Where are we going? Here, right? Mental. Emotional is where? Here. It's in our heart. And yet society has a tendency to reward what? This way more than it does this, as a general rule of thumb. I'm not saying there's not. Of course, there's always exceptions, right? And so I mentioned this idea that from the metaphysical book, Heart-Centered Metaphysics, it said we need to cultivate an awareness of the perceptual activity of intuition in our lives so that we are able to recognize and discern divine guidance, sounds like a good idea, versus simple human thought. So there's a difference between maybe what I'm being given from something outside of myself, something more than myself. You mean something like that might actually exist? Yes, it does. Or do I trust human thought, right? And so then the question is, okay, great, Mike, well, how do we do that? And so Ralph Waldo Emerson said the following: we live in the lap of immense intelligence. I love this quote. Which makes us receivers of its truth and organs of its activity. When we discern truth, we do nothing ourselves. Nothing. We don't do anything but allow a passage of its beams. Oh, that is so rich. Guess what the ego does when it says we do nothing? Bah! What do you mean I don't do anything? You don't do anything, ego, except get out of the way. Get out of the way. That's what you do, right? We do nothing of ourselves but allow. Last week was the eclipse, and I read a quote, and the quote went like this: the moon can be seen as a feminine principle of receptivity. So the feminine, you receive, right? And then there's the masculine principle of activity and reaching outward. Well, guess what? Intuition has nothing to do with reaching outward. It has everything to do with receiving. Oh, the feminine principle of receptivity. Some of you have heard me talk about this idea of the divine feminine. And I'm going to talk about it again today. And I'm going to talk about it again in a couple of months. And I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. Because I'm telling you right now, we as a human consciousness are waking up. And what we're waking up from is this oversaturation from the divine masculine. Everything's got to be boom, 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 boom. It's got to stop. It's the only way things are going to transform. is to balance the divine feminine with the divine masculine. That's what this is all about. That's what's going on. That's what intuition is, right? We've been completely out of balance. Society is mostly masculine. Now, there are some lights out there. There are some lights we're starting to see. But we desperately need the feminine, right? We need this balance that we're talking about. I want to talk about history for a minute because I think sometimes history doesn't do a really good job of telling the truth of what really happened. When I first came into Unity, I would walk into the Unity bookstore, and guess what I would see? All of the books that Charles Fillmore had written, because he wrote a lot of books. Guess who actually started Unity? Myrtle. Really? Myrtle. Why? She had tuberculosis. She's the one that got into New Thought. She's the one that started practicing the principles. And in 2 years, she healed herself from tuberculosis. That's the story. Myrtle started it. And then she kept going, and Charles looked and said, whoa, maybe I should start paying attention to what she's doing. She might be onto something here. Yep. And then Charles kind of joined, right? That's what happened, right? Somebody else. Mary Magdalene. What do we know about Mary Magdalene? She was a prostitute, right? Isn't that what the books say? Isn't that what they said? She was a prostitute? Yep, and Jesus kind of took her under his wings. Give me a break. Give me a break. That is such garbage, and I'm going to say it. It's garbage. Did you know when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls that they found that Mary Magdalene actually had a book? It's called the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Really? Yeah, there was actually a couple of books that they found. They found an additional book called the Book of Philip and a Book of Thomas, historically known. How many people know that? Wouldn't it be nice if they kind of let us know that Mary Magdalene actually wrote a book? And I'm telling you, if you've read it, it's an awesome book. If you're interested, that is a fantastic book. Mary Magdalene Revealed. It is a great book. It's a great book. But what you start to understand is that Mary just wasn't this, in the first place, she wasn't. One of the things it says in that book is she wasn't a prostitute. Guess what happened? A pope, right around 500, said, hey, you know, she had a lot of power. She had a lot of power. Let's make her a prostitute, shall we? 500 years after it happened. And so since that point in time, what do we think about Mary Magdalene? She's low life, she's nothing, and she's a prostitute that Jesus saved. Dear God. Anybody read the Sophia Code? It's the epitome of the divine feminine. The epitome of it. In that book, they talk about all the divine feminine masters. They talk about Isis, Hathor, Green Tara, Mother Mary, Mother Magdalene, Queen Yan, White Buffalo Woman. All of them were feminine masters. They have been here throughout history, and yet, do you even hear of them ever? No. Why? Because we wanted to shut them up. We didn't want to let people know that women can be just as powerful as men. And without women, without the combination of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, things get out of whack. Do you think things are just a little bit out of whack today? Yes. Slightly. But it's like we need to become aware of this. We need to step up. We need to see that power coming from the divine, the feminine. And even the men, when I say that, don't run away and go, oh, dear God. No. Invite the divine feminine into your life so that you can have intuition, so that you can hear these things, so that you can start to balance it. That's what we need, right? In the Sophia Code, actually what you'll read is that not only Mary Magdalene not a prostitute. She actually was with Jesus. And she matched him power-wise. In fact, as the story goes in that book, when she met Jesus, she wasn't so sure he could keep up with her. How do you like that? That's how powerful she was. Do you know that she paid for all of the things that Jesus did? She paid for all of that. She came from an extremely wealthy family. And that's where the money came from, so Jesus could do his work. She paid for it, right? There's a whole bunch of fun stuff in that book. You might want to read it. You might enjoy it. So, we've got this idea that this divine feminine has been suppressed. We also understand that there's this idea of this intuition. I'm getting back to the point about the sacred discernment, right? So going back to Myrtle, what does Myrtle say in terms of developing this? The study and the practice of truth. Oh, so you mean I actually have to study and practice? You mean I actually have to do my own work? You mean I actually have to dive in and start looking at some of this stuff? You mean it's not just going to fall in my lap? I'm not just going to come to church and listen to Mike talk and then all of a sudden everything is going to change? No. Nope. That's called entertainment. And that's great if you want to be entertained, but if you really want something to change in your life for the better, then there's work to do, right? There's work. The study and the practice of truth will help you discriminate between the false and the true and to combine rightly the ideas of the Christ mind. Again, two operating systems, egoic mind, Christ mind, within you, that you may express and bring forth whatever you will. Practice, 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 practice. Yes, practice, right? Now that which you receive from the mind of God, aka the indwelling Christ, is always good, always helpful, health-inspiring, and peace-inspiring. So Myrtle's kind of telling you, you'll know it's coming from God or the divine spirit or the Christ within, whatever you want to label it. You can hear it because of the following. It's always good, it's always helpful, it's health-inspiring, and peace-inspiring. So in other words, it has a particular quality, right? On the opposite of that, the mind sends its message along the nerves. Therefore, you can see that the character of your thoughts does affect the nerves. So what is she really saying? Myrtle's saying, pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to your thoughts. If they feel good, if it's inspiring, if it's motivating, if it's good, if it's helpful, all of these real positive things, start to listen. However, if it's negative, if it's not helpful, if you'll feel it energetically, you can feel the difference. How many people know what I'm talking about? Yeah, lots of hands. Good. In the right place. Whew. I hate it when I prepare a talk and I show up at the wrong place. So we're good. Thank goodness. All right, so when thoughts are of worry, fear, anxiety, lack of life, loneliness, lack of supply, or any other negation, the nerves suffer and become depleted. So again, it's the thoughts. What are you listening to? What do you pay attention to? What resonates with you? What isn't? Your nervous system. I always talk about the emotional guidance system. The emotional guidance system, your emotions are the window to your soul. Your emotions are the window to your soul. Pay attention to your emotions. Pay attention to what's going on inside of you, right? And Mary Magdalene revealed the book. She explains it even further. How can we get in touch with this? She says, ask anything and everything. And here's the most important part ever. Believe it. Believe this voice you hear inside so much that you actually act on it. Believe in you. Mary Magdalene is telling you what? Listen to the voice inside. Listen, listen, listen. Believe the voice you hear inside so much that you actually act on it. Okay? How do you do that? She goes on to say the greatest obstacle was believing it could be all this simple. 2 simple steps. 2 simple steps. You ask for what you need, and you receive it from within. Wait a minute. Is it really that simple? Can it really be that simple? Yes. Why? Because of who and what you are. You are so connected to Source, to God, to everything, that literally you are a reflection of it. So when you ask, hey, but you've got to slow down. We talked about this. It requires you to slow down and actually listen to the information that you're being given. So you receive it from within. Ask, receive from within. So, what I thought we would do, just for a minute, gentlemen, is close our eyes just for a moment. And I just want you to slow down for a second. And I want you to think of something that you've got going on. Where you're needing some help. You're needing some guidance, some direction. You've got questions. And just slow down enough get quiet. And now I want you to ask. Ask for whatever it is that you need. The instruction doesn't mean you edit it. The instruction is just to ask for what you need. Trust, trust, trust. And then, imagine you receive whatever it is that you're asking for. Don't limit yourself in terms of what it's going to look like, when it's going to show up, how it's going to show up. Your only job is to receive whatever you asked for. And trust. Just know that Spirit is working. Know that you're not broken. Know that even you can receive. So just imagine receiving. Whatever that looks like for you. Just imagine you're receiving. Tell yourself, I am receiving now. I am receiving now. The gift. I'm giving myself permission to receive now. I may not know what it looks like. I may not know when it shows up. But I'm going to trust and give myself permission to receive. And then just take a moment and just thank God. Thank Spirit. And then slowly start to come back into the room. And then welcome back. Everybody come back? I always have to ask. Yeah, super cozy space. sacred discernment, the calling, sacred listening, all of these things are beautiful spiritual tools that we get to add to our spiritual tool belt. That's what it's about. It's about using these tools that we talk about so that you can live your life and feel like you're being held and supported by the divine because of who and what you are. But we forget, don't we? Isn't that really what happens? We forget. We forget who and what we are because we've been told by, a lot of people, a lot of things that are absolute garbage and ridiculous. And when you understand, when you really, really start to grasp this, you let go of all the judgments, you let go of all the shame, you let go of all the blame, you let go of all of that, and you just start to think of what if? I love that question. What if? What if I really am a holy, sacred child of the divine? And what if it's not something, my divinity is not something I have to earn? What if it's just because of who and what I am that this thing exists? And what if I let go of all this stuff, all this shame, blame, judgment, and guilt stuff that's been put on me by everything out there, and instead I just start to trust this thing, and I start to have this wonderful relationship with this thing inside of me, and I start talking to it. Mike, don't you think that's a little weird? Oh, no. Why do I say that? Because I know. I know what's inside of you. And what's inside of you is beautiful. What's inside of you is sacred. What's inside of you was a thing that's been promised to us a long time ago, and it was taken from you. All you have to do is make a decision that I have got this thing inside of me, and I want to start to have a relationship with it. And then all of a sudden, guess what? You start to develop this relationship with this thing. And then guess what? This thing will start to talk back to you. What? Yes. It's that simple. Don't overly complicate it. Don't. There's no need to. The biggest thing that we have to do is get rid of all the crap up here. That's the biggest thing that we got to do. And realize who and what we are. And then all of a sudden, things start to change. And this beautiful, amazing, incredible, awesome gift called your relationship with God, with Spirit, will open up and become one of the greatest parts of your life, become one of the greatest dances you've ever done. To have this thing as you go through life and to be able to share it with your friends and your family and your loved ones is amazing. And it's all there. It's all there. And the only thing that it's waiting on is you. Just know that. It's all up to you. Nobody else, not me. Nobody. It's up to you. And it's there. And so I invite you. So, wrapping things up, remember that this whole thing is about your intuition. This whole thing is the quote, remember, this idea that we live in the lap of immense intelligence. Just imagine this intelligence. We're literally swimming in it. And when all of a sudden you start to become aware of it, it's like, whoa, so I can actually interact with this immense intelligence. Yes, you can interact with this immense intelligence. But you don't do it through here, which is what we're used to. You do it through here, through your heart. That's where you do it, right? Our job is to what? Receive, receive, receive. We're not used to doing that. It's a foreign language for many of us, right? Why? Because receiving is more of the divine feminine, and we're just not used to that. But guess what? You will be. Why? Because I'm going to keep talking about it, and I'm going to keep talking about it, and I'm going to keep talking about it, and I'm going to keep reminding you. Because we need it. We need it. We need the rise of the divine feminine to come back into our lives and into society so that there's this balance that has been so sorely missing and so sorely needed. So, thank you for coming here this morning. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with us this morning. I always say this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. You are my greatest gift. You allow me to do what I love to do, and for that I am incredibly grateful to each and every one of you. I just want to know I want you to know what a brilliant light that you are. I also want to say thank you to Phyllis. You are amazing. Thank you so much for coming here this morning and joining us. And to each and every one of you, even though you sit, you listen, I appreciate that. Please walk away from here remembering who and what you are, that you are a brilliant light just by being here, just by showing up and living in these crazy times. We need you just to be you, letting go of all of the garbage, all of the stuff. So, thank you for coming this morning. Incredibly grateful for you. I think we got to wait just a half a second. Oh, I guess I do. We're good. See, that's why it's so good to have people around you to make sure you stay on track. I see him get up and start walking out, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. Awesome. Anyways, thank you. God bless you. Namaste and Namaste.
Hey, it's Reverend Mike here. I just wanted to stop for a moment before you get on with your day, and thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. It means the world to us, and I just wanted to let you know if there's anything that we can do to make your experience even better, please do not hesitate to reach out by going to our website. I also wanted to offer you the opportunity for us to get together and sit down so I could get to know you a little bit better and answer any questions that you have. I can either do that by either getting together in person, have a cup of coffee, or we can meet online via Zoom. If you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me at michael@courage2thrive.com. And lastly, if you find these messages are helping you, we would be tremendously grateful if you'd consider donating to the center. The best and the easiest way to do that is simple. Just go to our website. Again, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. Hope you're doing well. God bless, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye now.